Hey everyone, this is Lucid, and I'm here with Saquenay for the final episode in the Lanka series.
Hello, everybody.
And yeah, we're going to do an after action. We're going to look at the last turn, which we haven't looked at yet, and then we'll pull up score graphs, and then I think we'll just kind of muse on the nation Lanka and kind of how it played out in the end, and get Saquenay's perspective of the last 10 turns or something.
Sounds good.
All
I
right.
hope. So actually, we should mention Lucid just recorded the last few turns, and I don't know how much information I gave you initially. I just sent you the turns, so there's probably a lot of random discovery. Like, okay, what the hell is Saturday thinking here?
But you're like idle like 4 of those turns. I was like literally nothing happened. I was like, okay, I don't know what they're talking about here.
So I was actually very busy too during that time, and I do feel I could have probably closed out the game, 3 or 4 turns faster had I done everything, much more optimally. But yeah, so I was kind of building up some things, and there were definitely a couple of turns we could have shaved off that win, but we got it.
Oh, I missed this. I never noticed you moving a Denava over here. That's kind of badass.
Yeah, I mean,
Was that the previous
we went
turn?
for bonus thrones too. I mean,
Oh man,
yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, because actually I think there was a throne under construction. We did some assassinations, if I remember correctly. I tried some assassinations there that didn't quite work.
Yeah, the assassins got wrecked.
Yeah, but yeah, I saw that was still sort of a fort being constructed. I actually don't remember. I thought, I mean, it's been a while now, so I don't know if I had a Holy Three planned to take that. But it's certainly within range of like a 3 red seconds, so that could have been a backup for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you probably had Amanda Haas somewhere nearby that could get there.
Well, that's yeah. So one of the things I did kind of really slow play at the end, but like I said, well, we can talk about this, but late game Lanka takes a lot of time to play, guys. Holy crap! And there, I yes, I could have by not cutting corners, but like by using all my resources, like optimally. I think we could have made these moves like 2 or 3 turns ago, but it was kind of like I just took extra turns. I have like 2 Mendehas in every one of the big armies, right? Like
Oh yeah.
There's redundancy that is overkill here, but I could afford it because I took those 3 extra turns of like, all right, I don't really have time to micro this turn. We have all the water devils.
Yeah, I noticed you were like, I think I was maybe going to get one of them, but you were like, I'm going to get all of them.
Well, yeah. So again,
was that particularly anticipating getting this throne?
Well, yes. So definitely, I was aiming for that throne, right? The 2 thrones for the win were definitely the underwater one and the top one near, Sitis and Mekone. Those were the two. Now, but the underwater one, I didn't know how much resistance I would have to face.
Right.
And again, it's a thing where in hindsight, like a couple of super combatants, one of those dudes maybe, and like, I don't know, a couple of undead would have been more than enough, and I could have done this 4 turns ago. But since I was spending all the turns, it's like, might as well get all the underwater dudes, right? Like, if I had to fight a real underwater army from Oceania, then you kind of need to have 5 dudes spamming water elementals or whatever, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know. It'd be funny if Oceania attacked us and we got to have like a major underwater battle. I think we probably would have been okay, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think we would have had to PD dump. Is what we would have had to do.
Well, the issue was more.
But I mean, we had 3 red seconds, so we didn't even need to have a fight.
Yeah, exactly. Because of 3 red seconds, we don't need the PD dump. So it was more like anticipating, like, what if he senses I'm about to go for the win and he takes the throne, and I have to fight like a player for the throne, right? That was what I was thinking.
Yeah.
In the end, we didn't need to, but it's like I have the turns, so what am I going to do with these like 900 blood slaves? Might as well get a few more, ice demons. Also, I think I used them to craft like a bunch more underwater breathing gear. Like, we just needed more water mages. I
Right.
think.
Yeah, we had
Um,
pretty damn good gym income. I mean, we had a ton of resources coming
yeah,
in.
yeah. Well, that was another thing. So we talked about. I don't know how much you talked about this in your in the last couple of videos, but when you handed off the game to me, we talked about some like global strategies, right?
Right.
Plans that we had, and in the end, um, like we were thinking about dark skies, for example, and things like
Right.
that. But in the end, Ubar put that up, and so, but like it kind of all worked out,
Yeah.
in the end. But a lot of the idling was like, okay, my plan is let's save all the air gems for this. But then it's like, oh, well, this happened now. This other nation put up this global. So now we don't need that target. We don't need that research target. Now we can shift to doing something else.
Okay. I wasn't even
You
looking at
know,
that. What were you? What were the research targets
geez.
at the end? Do you think? I
Well,
guess.
hang on. So I got the turn here. I loaded up just on my computer. I think turn 64 might be when I took over. Let me look at the research. So yeah, so when I got the turn, you had Conjuration 4, Alteration 8, Evo 6, Construction 6, Enchantment 7, Thaumaturgy 5. Yeah, so for example, you had Thaumaturgy 5 when I came
Right.
in.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about doing a big airplay, right? And we were going to steal Galegate first of all,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I queued up Thaumaturgy, uh, right? Because that was like part of our plan.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
then if I look at, but like I started each turn, I changed the research targets. um, oh no, so we did more thaumaturgy on turn 65. I'm just going to go through this kind of quickly on my end here to see where we changed. Guys, I remember changing this a few times. Um, Also, I do decide to go all the way to Thom 8 anyways.
Oh God, I'm having
Oh,
major audio issues. 1 second.
yes, I can hear that. I hope everything's okay.
Oh my gosh. All right. You there, Seth?
Yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay? It sounds like
Oh my God. That's the like my speaker almost exploded.
yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Um,
Okay, we're good though. We're good.
all
Sorry,
right, good.
I had it muted while all that craziness was going on. But
All
yeah,
right, good. Because yeah, I heard it also. I was a bit worried. Um, but yeah, so I did end up going for Thaumaturgy 8 first, and I think by the time I got there, um, I guess I don't know why we changed. No, see, I still have 200 air gems, so actually I have to kind of replay this because I'm not sure, um, like what happens in the globals.
well, I don't think stealing Galegate necessarily matters when we're about to win, right?
Well,
Like,
that's the
yeah.
yeah, that
So
was the
like,
other thing.
we'll just get Dark Skies from you, I guess. But like Galegate, we don't need because we're.
Oh no, here's what happened. So Galegate got overcast. Like somebody else put up a global that overcast
Oh,
Galegate
okay.
on turn 69. That was the turn. Honestly, that was probably when we were
Yeah.
planning on making that move, right? I see that I have 234 air gems here on turn 69. We got Thumb 8 1 or 2 turns ago. And then Galegate gets overcast by, I don't know, something, probably one of these McCone globals. He's got like half of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened.
Dude,
And
Ballin put so many because Ballin was the one that hosted this game. He had
yeah,
9 global slots available,
yeah,
or
that's a
like
lot.
a 11-player game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's ridiculous. There was Vengeful Waters, Wrathful Skies, and Dark Skies up in terms of just the cancer ones, and then all the economy ones were up.
So after Thumb 8, like I had Conjuration queued up, But then I was like, all right, this global isn't. I was like, this whole error play is not well. Okay, so I can see here on turn 70, I've suddenly dumped all of my air gems, so I can only assume that I'm just going to steal Dark Skies
Yeah,
at
yeah,
this
that was
point,
what you did.
and directly without having to do Gale Gate. And then I'm switching to at this point, I'm like, okay, what do I need to feel really comfortable about winning big late game battles? And the main thing is we didn't have Mastery Gen yet. We didn't have Enchantment 8. So we didn't have like good battlefield resists and regen, which I kind of personally feel uncomfortable not having a big end game battle without him. Now I know we had a pretty crazy bless, right? But
Yeah, we've got regen in our blast, so
um so yeah, so then I just was getting a couple last pieces of tech that were going to make things easier. Also, yeah, I think it was just slowly multiplying the capability. So diplomatically, I think I was able to always keep. Oh, is this the final battle?
yeah, this is like the last battle with McCoon.
Yeah. But so the by the way, the other thing I realized if I ever play late Lanka again, um, is well, especially as we play with your gem mod, is one thing I should have started doing as soon as I took control is start forging a bajillion blood slave generating items because um, these big battles have like 30 40 communion slaves, but that means 30 40 blood slaves have to be consumed just to get the communion going.
Right, and then with the gym baiting and stuff, it gets
If
worse.
they're exactly if you're gem baiting, that's like 100 slaves per turn for that army, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I was gonna turn
so
it on early, like make it more earlier, but the problem was I couldn't keep my communion slaves alive because Satis was doing manifestation on them all game, and like not like one or two, he was doing like 5 a turn. So eventually, I gave up on having non-thug communion slaves, and all my mages were commanders that had anti-assassin gear.
that's interesting because by the time I took over, it was clearly I didn't experience that at all, partly because you
Right.
had mostly beaten Satis, but also it was at a point where like I actually reshuffled a lot of the Raktapatas. Like I moved a lot of them out of the drained territory in the back and moved everybody up to the front lines.
Yeah.
Some of them were doing new blood hunting. I opened up new blood hunting provinces.
Yeah.
Um, I canceled a lot of the undead summoning in the back. I redistributed all the undead so that there was like one um, Mound King with 80 undead patrolling in almost every province. But after that, I just moved everything up to the front line. So those big armies, like there were 3 or 4 major armies if you look at all the different frontiers, and they all have like 30 Rakta. So it doesn't matter if you do like 10 manifestations, you're still going to have plenty of communion slaves. And I think earlier
Well, yeah,
on,
but losing losing a Raktapada to manifestation isn't a big deal, but losing a Raktapada with like 15 blood slaves worth of items on him is kind of shitty. But I wonder too, it may be because those do spawn blood slaves and assassinations. I wonder if they would cast Leech and maybe kill some of the manifestations. I don't know.
oh, it could be, but what's nice about blood slaves is it doesn't matter which mage is carrying them, right, in the battle. So uh, if I was really worried about a lot of remote assassinations, well, first of all, you could just like spread the blood slaves, amongst. If you had the time to micro, you could like give 2 to every mage, but you can actually have the big thugs carry all the blood slaves for everybody else, and
Yeah, that
they
probably would have
can
been
still
smart.
communion up. So that
Yeah.
actually is a nice bonus for blood magic is that you don't have to assign the gems to the right commander as long as they're close enough on the battlefield.
Yeah, that is nice.
They'll share all the gems. But yeah, definitely. By the time I was doing these big battles, I had very large numbers of mages so that assassins weren't really an issue. Um, or I should say, if assassins had still been a thing, it wouldn't
Yeah.
have impacted it too much because there were just
I feel like
too many
McCoon has
commanders.
kind of. I think. Do you? I felt like McCoon kind of gave up at the end. What do you think?
Well, at the complete end, yes, but that's because if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, like I crushed like
This army
his
that was right here.
armies at the
Yeah.
top. Like
Yeah.
obviously by the end, yes, I had won the game like two
No, but
turns
I think after
before,
you
but
killed this army here, like so
mhm.
completely, I think he was like, yeah.
Yes,
And he did
yes,
have this army which marched. I mean, it was like the march of Napoleon into Russia, right? It came here, and then it was like it hit this fort that you had put all your stuff in, and it just got
yes.
completely trounced. And then that was it. It was like, okay.
Well, exactly. And to be fair, like that is. Oh, sorry, I've got a phone making noise here. Um, it kind of the style that I end up playing in the end, but which is not entirely uncommon, is like I'm gonna win, but you've got a big army, so there's a risk that if I go into your territory, this might be costly. I might not be able to finish it off. If you're willing to attack into me, I'm going to let you come at me and kill you on the
Right.
defensive, which is easier. And, McCone was willing to oblige. He made those moves. Like I laid the
Yeah.
trap.
Attacking into
He,
enemy Dominion too when they're doing morale plays matters a lot. Like -2 Dominion, I mean -2 morale, which is what you're gonna get from either +1 down to -1.
yeah,
It matters a lot.
absolutely. And that was our thing, right? We were doing morale plays. It was Wailing Winds, Blood Rain in every fight.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah,
I tell you
so
what, McCone lived up to their name of being the best cross country team there is. Yeah.
yeah,
This,
yeah.
this
Well,
top
but
battle, I think. I know it was this one, the one down here. Like the first turn, like one of the big squads of Gigante hoplites like turned around, started running, and then within, I mean, it actually ended up not being quite as devastating of a win, just because so
because
many
they
of them ran
retreated,
off the
yeah.
field. I was like,
No,
damn
you're
it,
right.
they
But
ran too
that's
soon.
but that's true for like any nation fighting into Lanka, right? Like that is a
Yeah, that's true.
singular challenge of fighting Lanka. It's like, okay, you're going into Blood Rain and Wailing Winds for sure in every battle.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and Dark
darkness.
Skies, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well, darkness,
like
right too, and then
darkness, Dark
and
Skies,
then meanwhile
everything.
we have the lucky awe throne, right? When you, I mean, the awe throne, it's worth. I think it's worth considering taking. I think there's other things you want more on your bliss, but awe is really nice on your bliss for Lanka. Once you get the morale plays,
Sure, absolutely. You're right. There's a great synergy there. I think a good way to summarize the late game here, the last 10 turns for me was like on the one hand, I was thinking about the globals, right? And in the end, McCone overriding Galegate made it easier for us to just go right for Dark Skies. So that was one thing that was going on. The second thing that was going on was getting the last key research like mass regen and a few other battlefield spells that I really wanted to get my hands on. And then there's the transition economically from having all these mages more like in the backfield and just moving everything up to the front line to have like a couple of concentrated massive armies, right? One up north, one down south, actually two down south, one like near Vanheim, one in the caves down south, and then one on the Candle to the northeast to protect against Ubar. So I guess there were four massive armies,
yeah,
right? And each of those armies had like two Mendehas, a bunch of Dakinis, right? Like that's those
yeah.
idle turns. I was like doubling all the key infrastructure.
Oh, okay,
So
that
even
makes
in
sense.
like, right, so that I had to have like two holy threes going into each of these throne battles for redundancy. Um,
Yeah, you don't want to miss
and
having divine blessing go off or something. But
right, well, but also just to claim the throne too, right? Because
right,
that's the only thing that's they're gonna win is like with a remote assassination. Um, and so, like was summoning like one Mendeja turn for like 6 turns or something like that. Like
I think throne claiming is before remote assassinations. I think.
Yeah, probably, but people are going to do it on your army like the turn before, right?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, like for this throne, right? Like if you were to march here, they could assassinate you while you're here. But for this underwater throne, I guess they could try to assassinate you while you're storm. Oh, but there was no fort. So as soon as you got here, you're fine. You just claim the throne and 3 red seconds it, and they can't do anything.
But but you're right. So, but in that battle, that was a throne that had Mind Lord in it. So what if he soul slaves the guy, right? Yeah. So it's all those kinds of
you're being safe. It's cool.
Yeah.
I want to pull up. I want to pull up the last turn and look at score graphs. You cool with that?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Have you seen them, Saquenay?
I don't. I mean, I might have looked at them, but I don't.
You don't remember? Okay, so, what do you think the research graph's like?
I suspect we're like. I think we're behind, but I think we just have the normal inflection. It's just lower than everybody else's.
Okay.
So
the research leader was McCoon, which makes sense because they probably, it looks like they got to this point where they started making lanterns. They were kind of low in the research, but then they started making lanterns about 20 turns ago.
I think also they had a huge economy, so they were able to keep recruiting mages all game long, whereas other nations might, no longer be able to afford it.
Ubar was also ahead of us in research, which I found kind of interesting.
Yep. I'm not surprised, and we're third there, right?
Right. Yeah, I think this emphasizes a good point. I think a lot of times people think like you have to win. Like there were a lot of things we didn't win this game. Like we didn't win research, we didn't win globals, we didn't win a lot of different like metrics of the game. We just won all the fights.
Well, yes and no. I think research. So okay, yeah, we didn't win research, but honestly, you look at the research.
We had enough
research that you have done at the end. Like, what more do you need to win?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's like it's understanding research and it's understanding like what you actually need versus like what's nice to have.
What's nice to have, right? And I think that is a point too. Like, I feel more comfortable going in with Enchantment 8, right? But maybe I could have won those fights with the research I had on turn 65 or whatever I took, control.
What I'm surprised with is I never saw McCoon do Firestorm, and seeing they're the research leader, there's no reason not to expect it. That's kind of like the spell I was expecting.
I wonder if he just psychologically saw the fire resistance bless and was like, it's going to be useless anyways. What's the point?
But we brought enough undead with a lot of our armies that he probably could have HP routed us.
Maybe, but again, that's true, and I guess that is part of the reason why it does feel nice to have Enchantment 8 and the mass fire resist and mass regen. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
That was definite.
Getting fire resistance on your undead to stop the HP route of the army.
That was definitely part of my thinking at the time. Was I'd feel a lot better if I have mass shock resist or like not shock penalty because we're doing armies of gold. Like that kind of no, we never got armies of gold, did we?
No, we never did.
No. Well, no, I have it here at the end, and I got it. Looks like I did get it. But
you got it?
We even have earth mages? I don't even think we have.
No, we don't have army of gold. We're only at alt 8.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So right. So we were doing mass protection. So I'm like, yeah, definitely I want to have mass fire resistance for sure.
Yeah.
So that was definitely part of my thing. Now, ironically, I think because you didn't have a lot of fire mages, you had some sages somewhere. I think I was using for that.
Yeah.
And they might have died or something, but it was a thought that counts. Oh no, I see the guy here. Yeah, there's a fire 3, death 1. I don't know.
I think that guy might have been a mercenary or something. I can't remember, but
you make a good point, which is that I didn't even see him try to cast it.
Yeah.
So,
in my opinion, that's like I think like to play McCoon, the late game for McCoon is you have to be pretty good in research and you hit alt 9 at a good time. Like if you get Alt 9 at McCoon at a good time, and then you do Army of Gold and Firestorm and people aren't ready for it, and you've been aggressive in the mid game, that's how you that's how you close out the deal. Because you don't want to go in the late game. Like, in my opinion, you want some core research, you hit Alt 9 and you try to end the game with McCoon.
That's a great target. Like, I'm thinking around turn 50-ish is when you'd love that to come online.
Yeah.
Because by turn 60, your opponent is going to have Enchantment 8. They're going to have Fire Resist and Mastery Enchant, and then that shuts down that play pretty hard.
All right, Jim comes Saquenay. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're killing it.
You think we're killing it? We didn't have any of the Gym Globals. That's the one, caveat.
Oh, that's true. But we're killing it, and that's not even going to count.
We were tied with McCoon. How about that?
Yeah, because he has all the globals.
Right, but still, that's pretty impressive, McCoon. I mean, he's I think he's been ahead of us. Like, the area under the curve is way higher for McCoon than for us.
Right, but okay, so Well of Misery, Eternal Pyre, I guess it's only 2.
Yeah. And it's an important 2, but,
That's like 40 gems a turn. And if you look at our total gem income, that's a big portion of our gem income. Like, if you add up, it looks like, let's see, 40. That's a quarter.
Yeah.
Like, we have about 200 gems per turn just eyeballing it. So, like, a fifth or a quarter of that graph is his 2 globals.
Yeah.
But importantly, I don't think that shows Blood Slaves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're doing like...
Oh, well, there's Ubar too. I had Ubar. This graph does show kind of that Ubar was a third-rate power. Like, in research, Ubar looks like they're second in research, but in gem income, they're basically like McCoon without the globals, except worse.
I think they're much smaller too.
Yeah,
McCoon
they are.
Got pretty big. We got pretty big. But Ubar, no matter how much you site search, if he doesn't have a lot of land to work with, he's going to be screwed in that.
Yeah, exactly.
And he also had a global. He had Galegate up for a while. So.
And he didn't. You can see in the mid game for Ubar, he was small for a long time. His first war with Arco only ended at the very end of the game. He fought Arco almost the entire game.
Yeah.
But he expanded pretty fast. I mean, you can see his gem income going up like crazy. Like, so he was on the rise, but still, like, definitely
you can see
a
that's his
power.
Conquest of Arco, right? You can see Arco's graph. Oh, no, that's...
I'll go provinces here, but we'll get the... Here's the Ubar war with Arco. I mean, look at this. They were fighting. Yep. You can see the inverses here a little bit, but they've been fighting literally the whole game.
Yep. Feels bad.
Ubar went down here when they were getting attacked. If I put Helheim on here, you'll see Helheim was attacking Ubar right here. And then Helheim got eaten by McCoon right about here. Let me take these off. I'll just show you that. Here's Helheim and McCoon. You can see that, how that war went.
Yeah.
And that took the pressure off of Ubar. I don't think Helheim was doing that much with Ubar, but that allowed Ubar to then close the deal with Arco a little bit more easily.
I think one of the other things that I was surprised at, when you handed over the game to me, you were talking about how in the Northwest, you had done most of the work against Sitis. He still had 1 or 2 significant armies, but there were thrones like on the border with Mekone, and you were thinking like, oh, hopefully we can get like one of those thrones or something like that. You felt like Mekone was going to come and encroach on that.
I knew McCoon was going to get this one, right? This one, I no doubt. Right, but I was worried McCoon might get this one too.
Yeah, and it turned out, I mean, that first one, the one to the west that you're pointing out, I think he already had that by the time, I came in.
Right.
But all those other forts, like those 3 forts like in the mountains, that was all still Sitis's.
Right.
And I just kind of moved on there, and I think I just moved there fast enough that McCoon saw the armies and was like, nope, not going to touch that. And that was, that surprised me. I wasn't playing before, so it's just based on the conversation we had, you felt that he might challenge us for that, but he didn't. And that meant that it set up the late game where I'm just 1 province away from the throne.
I think
right,
for
from his
McCone
throne.
to try to fight us, they needed Army of Golden Firestorm. So the best thing I can come up with to justify his actions is like he didn't have it yet and was stalling. But it's possible it was
Maybe.
something different.
Yeah,
But
we'd have to ask him. Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
you're right. He should. That was like a moment, like for him to let us get these through, like all this stuff uncontested, these forts. That was like a major. I won't call it a mistake, but it was a major setback for him.
well, it set it up so that I felt that anytime I was ready to pull the trigger, I could just go because I'm
Right.
literally one province away from his throne, right?
Yeah.
So I was just like, because if you look, that throne has a pretty long connection to the province to the northeast of it.
Right.
So I mean, he might have had that problem. Actually, we had a big battle in that province eventually, but with the two forts to the north of that province that you have highlighted right now, the one to the northwest and to the northeast, with both of those under our control, is really a stepping stone to just attack that final throne. It's
Yeah.
basically on our border. Imagine if he had that Satis fort to the west in the north, like
Hmm.
let's see,
Yeah.
157, right? If he had 157,
Yeah.
that one, then it's a lot trickier for us to suddenly decide, okay, let's push into his throne, right?
Right.
So that just sets up the whole dynamic in the late game where I'm feeling anytime I want, I could make a push on that throne. Then I've got the underwater throne. Anytime I want, I can make a push on that. So it's just a completely different late game. But like you said, maybe he didn't feel he could challenge those armies. Although honestly, I felt it was pretty shoestring, the armies I was taking those last Satis forts with. I was like, I remember at one point I was like, okay, how can I get 8 communion slaves here? Because
Yeah.
I'll have to use
Well,
like a
because I had
bikini for
given up
one or
on you.
something.
That's the part you didn't see. I had given up on communion slaves until Satis was dead. Once Satis was dead,
Yeah,
then I was ready to start moving some in. And I went up there with a lot, but I tell you what, they all died.
they all died. Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, that I kind of wish we got to see the firestorm and stuff, but it was. I think we were pretty set up to roll in with the victory there. We've talked about the research and gems. We haven't talked about the income yet.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was surprised by is I thought McCoon was richer than he was. We actually ended up being top on income by the end, which I found a little surprising. I was still thinking I was going to be lower.
But doesn't McCone was getting a lot of income from the alchemy stuff, and that
Right.
wouldn't show up here, right?
Yeah, so they were probably like plus 2,000 income, which at this time at the end of the game, I think we were at like 5,000.
Yeah.
So they were probably,
So
their real income was probably like up here. So they were probably still ahead of us if they were alchemizing everything. But I think too
yeah.
at the end, they probably like did some lantern production. And at the end, I'd also be thinking about saving up for Flames from the Sky or something too. But I don't know if he had that.
Yeah, flames. I'm, as you know, I'm a big proponent of flames from the sky.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't use it against Lanka. Although
No, it's good against Lanka because even the
the
Bless,
fire,
you can't.
yeah,
You can't get rid of the fire resistance with the Bless.
I'd have to. I have a program that I wrote to math it out. I'd
Yeah.
have to check, but because of the big HP pool, it might be that you need 4 or 5 casts to kill us.
No, but
That's 30
Saquenay, you
HP
get you get 5 bonus damage from the fire resistance.
Yeah, yeah, but you still have 15 protection and 30 HP, so it's pretty. And I know I know it's AP, but it's
Well, how much damage is it again? I kind of forget. Is
15.
it 15? So it's going to become 20, and it's going to be 20 AP damage against this. So it's going to be
Like 13 or so.
like 13 or so
13 or
damage.
so.
Okay, so it might
Yeah.
take 3 hits, but if you get DRN on 1 or 2 of them, it might be 2.
Right, but the problem
Yeah.
is you're right, but so 30 hit points.
Yeah,
means
you're probably
that
you're
you have
probably
to
right. You
hit the
probably need
same
to
guy
cast it 3 or 4
and you're
times.
only hitting half the army each time.
Yeah.
So statistically, that's the thing. If you blow up an army with 4 or 5 flames from the sky, I think you'd get about half of the sacreds, maybe, and it'll weaken the army a lot. It's always a useful tool to have available, and for sure McCone can pull it off. But it's but it's you gotta math it out against a nation like that with high HP units for sure.
Yeah, I hate that
Um,
Flames from the Sky tool you have.
the what?
I hate that tool you have. Just throwing that out there.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well,
What
yeah,
tool do you
because
mean
you Flames from the
specifically?
Sky and mean that in the relay game, asshole.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Just Matt, I just know you're plugging in my meteorite guard into that. Anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, but I mean, the meteorite guard. If I kill all your communion slave, like if I kill your astral mages, meteor guard aren't such a aren't such a
I
problem.
don't care about the. I care about the meteorite guard. The mages or whatever. I can get them from the coast. The meteorite guard I can only get from underwater.
Uh-huh. Well, good to know.
Yeah.
It's funny, right? Well, actually, obviously in this game, I'm sure you skip. Okay, sorry, we're
Anyway.
we're diverging, guys.
Yeah.
We're playing another game where I'm making good use of Flames from the Sky too.
Yeah.
It's a good spell, guys. Yeah. Well, honestly, the income in this game is mainly because you have a lot of capitals.
Yep.
And also we put up some key spells. There's a global that isn't often used, an air global, not global, sorry, air ritual that you can cast on a province that is next to a water province. So
did you do
coastal
trade
province.
winds?
Yeah, trade winds. We did it in one of these super rich, either capital or something down in the south.
This one would have been the place to cast it, I think. Unless
One
there's
of
something
these,
else.
I remember we did it in one of them.
Oh, this looks like it. Oh, Fomoria's on a tiny little coast. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Fomoria. That's right.
Boom.
We did trade winds in Fomoria. It's still up. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's like hundreds more. It's 25% increased income, and
Yeah.
it's a capital. So
Yeah, that's pretty clutch.
I think our land was just more valuable than McCoon's land. Just
Yeah, and he had to take
provinces.
not great scales to get his chicken going. Like with like 5 or 9 fire and a very expensive chassis.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna go through the rest of the score graphs real quick. Forts, I think that's the one. Like this is one of the graphs we like just hardcore won on. At the beginning of the game, we weren't building forts. We were busy killing Fomoria. But once we killed Fomoria, we just went on like this fort building spree, and that's where this ended. And I think this was before the Satis War started. Notably, the fort leader for a while was Satis, which made sense because he had just a mountain of mages for us to kill. So he was fort second for a while, and then later the fort second became McCone. But once we finished Fomoria off and we started our fort construction spree, we were first for the rest of the game.
Well, also, if you look at the graph, I mean, you built a bunch of forts, but then you just took all the Satises, is what happened.
Well,
right?
that's also what happened, yeah.
Yeah, so that helps when your opponent builds them for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's another way to look at it, is I mean, before I took Satises, I forted up the lands of Lanka to be like some of the most fort-rich lands, right? And then my other neighbor, Satis, forted up his to be the second most fort-rich lands. And then we killed him and took his forts. So, lots of forts.
I think it's worth emphasizing that even though Lanka, you might end up pretty poor just because you're going to take garbage scales to have a big bless, the Raktapada is such a powerful and versatile mage that the more forts you have, the more Raktapadas you're going to have, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. So that's forts. Provinces, we just were crushing all game basically. If we look in Fomoria was best in expansion. Interestingly, they had that dragon. They had an awake dragon. They were crushing expansion, and that's why we chose to fight them because they would pinned us into our cap. Who's up next? We got Arco. Man, Arco crushed expansion, which is what you'd expect with Wind Riders.
Yep.
And then they did really well in their first, looks like at the start of the first war, and then things kind of went sideways. Satis had like a very middling expansion, but despite that, they were still able to put up, the second most number of forts.
Yeah, they grew kind of dense instead of wide with forts, and then went out with a ton of shaman, basically, I think.
Yeah. The oceans, we should just do a little segment real quick on the ocean nations, because that was just a grudge match underwater if I've ever seen one. I mean, look at this.
The entire game.
It's like a DNA change.
Yeah.
I tell you what, as a land nation, though, that makes you happy. Because it's the worst thing when an ocean water caves real quickly, and then you have one single power with two nations worth of stuff just looking at who they're going to fuck with.
Yeah, I looked at this and I was like, man, why does this never happen in my games? Like,
yeah,
I hate fighting against underwater nations, and this is exactly what you want to see. Yeah, I think the last thing, I mean, I'm sure you touched on it too in the videos, but diplomacy-wise, I think is the other key to being able to close out this game. I was able to convince is a strong word, but I was able to convince Ubar to not attack me. But I do think it was sort of in his interest, in the sense that Ubar was really far behind on thrones. And the only way he could get in a winning position was to get a bunch of land and to get a bunch of thrones.
Yeah.
And the only way he could do that was to get them from McCoon.
Yeah.
He could not get them from us. Partly it's because you have drain scales.
Yeah.
And
we burned our scales to the fucking ground. He's got drain 3.
Yeah, and not
Patrol
only
cap
that,
everywhere.
but we have like hordes of spirit site patrollers in every province. And I talked to the player, and he was like, yeah, dude, I really don't want to go in there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. But also geographically, like, there weren't any obviously vulnerable thrones or beachheads that he could establish in our territory, right, to make permanent gains.
Yeah.
Whereas on the McCone front, he certainly felt that if he was like just doing well in a war against McCone, he could get thrones there.
Yeah.
But he was in a rough position, because if he weakens McCone a lot, then maybe that sets me up for the win. But
I think the play for Ubar would have been to convince McCone to give them, like, the cost of an active coalition against Lanka. I think he would have had to convince McCone to give him like 6 provinces on the southern, like to give him all of Helheim, which I think would have been enough.
Like, say, give me all of Helheim, and then the two of us will go fight Lanka.
Yeah, I think that would have been the best play. But I don't know if, like, normally you're not in the business of giving up capitals and, like all the surrounding land and forts. Because he would have had to give up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 forts and like probably 10 provinces.
I mean, McCone felt like McCone was... So what happened is Ubar...
I don't know if I would have done that as McCone, but I think that's the only way that... And not the only way, but like otherwise... The thing is, like you said, he's in a... Ubar's in a third place, like a distant third position in terms of thrones and lands and income. He's in a distant third position, and for him to improve his position, he needs to attack number 2 just because of geography and because it's a better matchup and for like a million reasons.
Yeah.
Right, but to not lose the game, he needs to attack the number 1 position.
Yeah.
But if he attacks us and doesn't make like a lot of hay, it's not going to help him win the game.
The other challenge is that, so our theory here is that the problem was that because Ubar and McCone were actively fighting, as opposed to like McCone seeding a bunch of stuff and then just fighting us, right? The two of them were fighting. We're assuming that somehow weakened McCone's position versus us.
I think
I didn't.
Yeah, he had an undefendable position.
McCone... Oh, sorry, I missed what you said.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, yeah, let's hear what you said. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I don't feel that like if McCone had thrown like 2 more armies like the ones he threw at us, that would have made any difference.
Yeah,
right?
I absolutely agree. He needed to fight differently with other tools, which even then I don't like. Firestorm, I don't think would have saved him.
I think it was too late for Firestorm.
Maybe like massive turn 1 earthquakes combined with Firestorm, combined with Solar Brilliance, combined with morale items on his commanders than he might have been
mean,
able to.
maybe those
Yeah.
are all things that Lanka can counter. We can do turn one mass flight. We can, like there's a lot
But
of
I mean, like those were the kinds of weapons you
yeah,
would need to bring.
yeah, exactly. I think Lanka is a stronger nation,
Yeah,
especially at this point in the game, right? It's a
yeah,
bad matchup for McCone.
yeah. It's a
Um,
horrible matchup for McCoon.
yeah.
But
Honestly, the Throne of Splendor really kind of like
it
just a
seals
kick
it.
in the nuts for
Yeah,
everybody else.
yeah. It
It's
says
just
there's
like,
going to be no melee combat, which you're going to win at. That's what that says.
yeah. And that's what McCone is like,
Yeah,
because literally McCone is a bunch of like running away chaff, and then these epic giants with their spears that are supposed to be good at fighting sacreds. And it's like, nope,
yeah.
yeah, it feels
Well,
bad.
and in darkness too, they barely hit anything. So it's like don't hit all, and then
Run away.
yeah. But okay, so I think we've been through most of the graphs. Let me double check. We've got province income research. Oh, we haven't done army size. Dominion, we're also crushing it. Which is this does bear mention because at the end of the game, all these like Cancer Dominion globals came up,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't really affect us that much because we had just awesome Dominion.
Well, yeah, exactly. But also because that was part of our play was we were going to steal
Right. Dark Skies, yeah.
Dark Skies. And, McCone, the big battles we had versus McCone were in our Dominion,
Yeah.
right? So those things matter. Like that wouldn't have been your Dominion. Like this was our Dominion over in Satissa's western provinces.
Yeah.
Like if sure we built temples there as soon as we could, but the only reason that was like 4 or 5 candles for us is because you had strong candles on the border of Satis before the war, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we were cranking out temples and Dominion pressure and all that.
I mean, dude, we almost like passively dom killed Oceania.
Did we really? Oh, we did. Oh my god. Look at that.
Like, look at the map. Like,
Look at
I'm
this.
looking at it here. It's just like,
Yeah. Their Dominion got crushed. Let me look at the map. Wait, This is all our Dominion? Oh my god, I didn't even notice that. That's so funny. They just got like this one land province. We take this land province, we would have dom killed them, I think.
yeah. Dude, I actually didn't realize. I'm looking at an earlier turn, but I didn't realize at the end at how bad it was. But
They've got one province here. Oh no, they've got these. Okay, no, we would have had to get them out of this lake.
Yeah.
Oh, they did. It does look like they basically killed Atlantis. I didn't realize this.
Yeah.
And by the end, it definitely went in Oceania's favor. But
yeah.
okay, so we didn't, but we almost did.
I mean, look. Once you have like 5 of your candles on his cap, I think it counts as a moral victory.
Yeah, it's a technical knockout.
Yeah,
for dom kill.
That's
hilarious. But yeah, that was a big boon. I think we had the other, and this is the graph we obviously dominated on, which is army size.
Yeah, it was a challenge to obviously logistics is a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
With Lanka, but at one point I was just like, you know what, we're just gonna make 3 Mount Kings a turn in this province for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
and like
that's all you do. It doesn't take that long.
Do that.
Especially with multi-province move. You just make your 3 Mount Kings. You take like a few clicks. You put all your undead on them, and then you send them off to some distant province and hope they get there.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. It's just a small detail, but I remember because I've actually just recently started watching your first videos in the series.
Yeah.
And I actually touched on it earlier, but you were talking about the annoyance of the micro for the blood slaves on the guys that are in the province, right? In terms of like patrolling.
Sure.
But once again, the blood slaves, they're shared between all the commanders.
Yeah.
So
it's more just like, you could also just make sure there's like 12 on one of them. It's faster, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So at the end, at first I was thinking, I was aware, what if Ubar comes and starts to raid us, and we need to have like a few guys scripted to cast, life for life and things like that. But later on, I abandoned a lot of those, like in the southeast, like all these wasteland. They weren't wastelands originally, but they're wastelands now.
Yeah.
I just kept like I went through the trouble of sending guys in to reanimate all the corpses, and in all those provinces to bring all that stuff up to the front. And honestly, in a big fight, questionable usefulness, but psychologically, when you're looking at the border of Lanka and like there are 3 provinces on your border and they all have like 3,000 undead, it just makes you not want to attack.
It does.
Right.
It is a strong deterrent.
And like that matters. Like especially in the caves, like I think that's where I had that going. Like I just in 11, which is not the fort, but the
Yeah, this
province
is
next
definitely
to it.
3,000 units. You're in 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just the province next to it, yeah, that province in 11. I think I might have moved the army back on the last turn just to
Yeah.
like, defend all my forts. But I just put a lab in 11, and then I just had like 40 Raktapada there doing reanimate warriors or research for
Yeah.
like the rest of the game.
All right, so closing thoughts, Saquenay. What do you think about Lanka? I know you were considering playing them again in a game coming up. Decided against it, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think I think it is a very strong nation. It is a nation that can very quickly run out of control. It's not like Scalaria level out of control,
Right.
but I mean, it's pretty close. I mean, all blood nations kind of do that, but this nation has like fantastic uses for its blood slaves.
But there's a lot of reasons it's not like Scalaria level. Because Scalaria gets to run scales, so you just get the fort everywhere. Lanka, you have to burn your scales. But
I just meant it in the sense that they're both nations that you don't want to leave alone in the hands of a competent player past turn like 40, right?
Yeah.
So
I think a big change is like determine like who's playing it. Like if you're playing Lanka and you're just like, I'm gonna get a Hellbless and I'm gonna get a lot of blood slaves and I'm gonna run at people. Like that works really well until like somebody kills like 1 or 2 of your Hellbless armies, and then you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, I think what makes it uniquely strong is the possibility to combine a Hellbless with an out of control late game. Like if you think of Scalaria, for example, the late game is out of control, but you can kind of nip it in the bud in the first 2 years, right? If you go at them with an early war before they can kind of get their shit together.
Yeah.
But if you take a strong enough bless on Lanka, it's like, I mean, it's not unkillable, but it's like, oh, we've got like a pretty strong bless on pretty strong sacreds in the early game. Not usually your first war target, right?
Right. You're usually like, let's deal with that a little bit later once I have some research. I don't want to throw troops at that.
Yeah. And on the other side, if you imagine like, I don't know, like some meme blessed giants like I don't know, Hinnom or something like that, right? That's like a Hellbless nation, but then they're gonna struggle in the late game because it's like they're doing the opposite. They're trying to leverage their Hellbless into like a good early war or two, so that their bigger size is gonna make up for their garbage late game, right? Because they trash their scales or whatever, right?
I mean, Hinnom has okay late game, I think, but I mean they do
because they have blood, right? But
yeah,
but like in general, that's how Dominions works, right? If you invest,
but like Pangea or something, right? They go for like a Hellbless on Pangea. They're gonna rely on being bigger, right?
Exactly. So Lanka can kind of have the best of both worlds. You can have a strong enough Hellbless early on to win your first war, and then it doesn't matter how bad your scales are, because Raktapadas, right?
Right. You don't have to be the biggest player to be the strongest with Lanka.
The Raktapada is such a versatile unit that if you're worried in the mid game of fighting somebody who's going to come at you with like thugs.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we could just life for life this, all day long. You
Life
can
for
do
life with Lanka is like late mid game though. But yeah. But yeah, they
right.
can't do that.
Yeah. So you have tools you need to survive the mid game, and if you get into the late game, we just saw what happens if you get into
Yeah.
the late game, right? This is what it looks like.
There's a
Even
few things
without
I think we
awe.
didn't see. We didn't see the demonic cleansing come out, which is one of like the counters. That would have been
True.
interesting to see. Like if it would have been kind of cool if one of them pulled it out like the last couple of turns to try to turn on an army, because it murders Lanka. It murders Lanka fierce.
Well, that's interesting because, I mean, yes, we did have, like, I had hundreds of sacreds in these armies, but early on when we were fighting Satis, right? Some armies were like demon armies and some
Right.
armies were undead armies,
Yeah.
right? And it would have been slightly more painful, but I would have still felt comfortable taking those fights even if there was demonic cleansing on, right?
Yeah.
It
But
would have
there's
hurt
a lot
more,
of things
no
that
doubt about
like
it.
demonic cleansing means you can't do wrathful skies and stuff too, because it doubles the damage
True.
of wrathful skies. So it's going to
True.
go through your shock resistance, which means you're going to get the blood vengeance. Like it's actually pretty powerful. But
Yeah, but then that means right. No, that's a good point. So that means we're doing mass flight battles instead of storm
right.
battles,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Which are also turns out incredibly effective.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it would have turned it around, but it's one of the kind of interesting late game things we didn't get to see.
For sure. Very strong nation. I almost did end up playing them in this upcoming game, in the tournament game. I was thinking about copying or doing something very close to this build. In the end, I decided not to, and we'll see if I come to regret that. In fact, the player after me picked Lanka.
Right.
I was second to last in the draft, and
yeah,
the player right after me picked Lanka. So who knows what
really
build they will take. Also, that game is full of murderless nations. So we'll
right.
See.
Yeah.
But very enjoyable. You gave it to me. You gave me this game in a very strong position, so it wasn't too hard to wrap it up. I liked the theme that you had going of like one item for every mage.
Yeah.
That certainly was helpful, and that also adds a lot.
It fully baptizes you into micro hell. You know?
Yeah. There were a couple of turns where there was a lot of micro and just moving things around. But I do think there are diminishing returns there. I think you maybe did it a little bit to excess. But like the reanimation heads, like at some point when you have like 40 guys reanimating, it doesn't really matter if you're getting like 200 or 240 crappy undead per turn.
Well, I mean, for me, one thing I would have done different at the end of the game is I would put up a ton of rating pressure with Mountain Kings, and maybe a supporting like a mage, like a Mountain King and a Dakini, both filled with undead. It's like extremely low commitment.
Oh, but attacking, raiding into McCoon.
Oh yeah, I just would have been hitting every province every turn.
Oh, interesting.
That's the point of the undead engine. It just, I mean, it's nice for the armies. It's mostly for the rating pressure because you mix it in with somebody who can thunderstrike or potentially thug. There's no efficient way to counter it.
Okay, that's a super interesting perspective because I totally agree with that from the point of view of let's win this 1v1 war against McCoon, right? And I totally see what you're saying there. My perspective in these last few turns was let's not anger Ubar.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
If we ate a ton of the McCoon stuff, he would immediately turn on us.
And not only that, but also let's bait McCoon, right? That's the other thing I wanted. Like I wanted McCoon to come in with his big army and try to attack me. And he did.
It worked. And
it worked, right? But yes, what you're saying would, I think, totally be a great way to...
I think you're right. The diplomacy makes that maybe not something you should do. But that was the purpose of having an inordinately large undead engine.
And to be honest, it's that undead engine that secured the peace with Ubar. because
Yeah.
that nation is like, I do not want to go into a nation where everything
Right.
is patrolled by 80 spirit site guys. It's just,
Yeah.
you don't want to do that.
Yeah. Especially when like, oh, hooray, you won a 2,000 population province.
Yes, that too. Yeah, for sure.
With zero income. I don't even know how that's possible. How is that? 2,000 population, zero income? We must have had a bunch of bad events or something.
Yeah.
I mean, we did kill misfortune, so.
Yeah. No, it was a fun end game. I think I like the paths that Lanka has. I like air death, obviously, incredibly strong. I like communions, nature, and so I think the only hole really I think in this nation is Earth access.
Yeah, and astral.
Yeah, but as long as you have blood, as long as you can communion up somehow.
Well, it was an issue in the statistics we're not being able to put up anti-magic.
Yeah.
And he kept magic dueling all my little indies I would bring. Made me very sad. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's ways around it. Earth you do kind of need in the late game, so you have to have a plan for that.
Yeah, so I'd say definitely have a plan for that. But otherwise, like I like the paths. It gives you most of the key tools you need. Very easy to cast whatever you need to cast. Good units, good mages, very strong nation. Yeah, good times.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and thank you Saquenay for subbing. This was
thanks. Thank you. It was a fun game to play in. It's nice that I got to taste just the good part at the end. I didn't have to do all the hard work to get there. So
I don't know about not having to do any of the hard work, but thank you, and I will see you guys in the next series. All right, take care, guys.
all right, see you everybody.